Hello, 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 and welcome to the Texas Live. I am Shane Moore.
And I am Sue Ellen.
And we welcome you. Tonight we'll be talking about Jim Jones and Jonestown. Failed or successful experiment? And the answer to that question would depend on who you ask. The official story has been on November 18th, 1978, Jim Jones, the religious leader of the People's Temple Agricultural Project, better known as Jonestown, oversaw the mass suicide of 909 of his followers. 40 years later, details have emerged that question the official story. The facts are more unsettling than the official story. Exactly how did the residents of Jonestown die? Was it actually mass murder that took place? Or was it in fact what the official story says was suicide? If it was mass murder, what was the motive of the perpetrators? What could the deaths of so many people serve? And the question is, who was Jim Jones really? And was this a failed experiment that required a huge cover-up? And who was really in control? And it's really really something to talk about, discuss, because what we have is it's like Russian dolls. We have Jim Jones controlling all of these people, but he himself was being controlled, and it's just a ladder of control that goes to the very top, and it's very, very creepy, very, very unsettling when you think about how that this chain of control can lead to the death of 909 people, and also the murder of different people that went to check out the alleged abuses and everything going on there, which were certainly going on under the leadership of the charismatic megalomaniac Jim Jones. So anyway, we will take a short break and allow listeners who want to join the live chat to do so. So stay tuned, and we will be back in 3 minutes. And we are back. Wow, I like that song.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Forbidden Smile from Sven Carlson. Yeah, I like that. That was loud and clear. Anyway, how are you, Sue Ellen?
I am good. I actually don't know a lot about Jonestown. Very interesting. When I was on my way to into basic training, Waco was happening.
Oh,
So
wow.
I listened to that the whole time. But yeah, this one I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say, and I've been reading some things about it, and I think I might have a few little surprises to throw in.
Great. I love those kind of surprises. The official narrative of Jonestown was what I read was that 909 of his followers, they committed suicide. This was after a U.S. congressman, I believe his name was Ryan, Leo Ryan, went and, yes, Congressman Leo Ryan, he had co-sponsored legislation to, believe it or not, rein in the CIA. And he went to Jonestown to uncover alleged abuses that were going on there, and there were plenty. And it actually, this was on November the 17th, and November the 18th is when everything fell apart, and Leo Ryan was murdered, shot along with his camera crew and people that were with him. Yes, it was really awful. Jim Jones. Hey, Mona. Jim Jones.
Mona.
Jim Jones ordered the slaughter of everyone. I mean, the death of everyone. And while it was said that his followers all committed suicide, there were many that were found with bullet holes in their heads. And so it was like, either drink the poison Kool-Aid, which is what they did. They had these big barrels of Kool-Aid that were poisoned with strychnine, and it was like, drink the Kool-Aid, drink the poison, or die, and if they didn't, then they were murdered. And there were many that, like I said, that had signs. Well, I mean, they had bullets in their head, but 909 people. Now, when you look at it as far as when you connect the dots, as far as the dots being different people at that time or around that time, different people throughout history, it forms a really strange connection with not just with these leaders, but we're talking Jim Jones, Charles Manson, and the Process Church. They were all supposedly CIA experiments in none other than mind control. And these Charles Manson, Jim Jones, they were chosen because the powers that be, they saw something in them that nobody else saw, whether that be that they were prone to megalomania, that they were psychopaths, or whatever. They had those traits that really got the attention of those in power, and those that wanted to do experiments to the last degree of the human mind I guess, to see if a person would perform the ultimate act of, suicide or whatever. And that is something that has been documented. That's something that has been questioned by these, very agencies and everything. It's like, could a person be controlled enough to, one question was, could a mother be controlled enough to kill her own child, murder her own child? And then,
well, we know that's the case. We've seen it, unfortunately,
right,
just in individual circumstances. Even women that have complained that God told them to kill their children.
Right, and when people do that, it's to me, it's proof positive that they're either insane, or they are hearing from they're hearing a voice that is definitely not God, and or a combination of both. And one thing that you've told me about, Sue Ellen, is the voice to skull technology, the voice of God technology, which is really creepy. It's like, if you hear a voice telling you to commit murder or to, kill your children, it's definitely not God. I mean, no matter what the, story is or the reason, it's definitely not God that is urging you to do that. And what we have here in Texas, in Houston, had the woman Andrea Yates, that she drowned all 5 of her children. And,
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's horrible. I mean, but this is what I found as far as Jim Jones and Jonestown. It's from Rewire.news. .com. It says, Jonestown at 40, the real conspiracy is more disturbing than the theories. It says, rather than parse the definition of murder or deconstruct the hearts of people long expecting to die, it seems most appropriate to conclude that murder and suicide occurred on that day. It says, this past month, and this was written in 2018, this past month, the Church of Scientology explained its ongoing interest in the deaths of 909 Americans that occurred in Jonestown, Guyana, 40 years ago on November 18, 1978. STAND, Scientologists Taking Action Against Discrimination, published a 4-part series that presents its best evidence for asserting that those deaths were mass murder rather than collective suicide, as initially reported in the news media. While Scientology may have had a stake in how this story is told, the series actually raises 2 important questions. First, how in fact did the residents of the People's Temple Agricultural Project, better known as Jonestown, die? While some journalists and theorists were among the first to ask this question, it's just now coming to the forefront in mainstream media and analysis of the events. The second question is, or should be, what was the motive of the perpetrators if the deaths were truly murder? As the Stand series asks, what purpose could the deaths of so many people serve? And then a number of writers have offered various theories that the deaths mask a hit on Congressman Leo Ryan. And who had co-sponsored legislation to rein in the CIA, that they hid the fact that Jonestown was a CIA mind control experiment, or that Jim Jones was a rogue CIA agent who killed everyone to prevent his secret from coming out.
And they also some of the conspiracy theories are talking about that people at Jonestown were actually used as terrorists themselves. You know what I'm saying? In secret operations, where they would cause roadblocks. They would do, they would be used in multiple ways and controlled. They pretty much had all those people at their disposal to do anything they wanted.
Right, which is which is really scary. I mean, really scary. I mean, you're talking about not
that many controlled people.
right.
I mean, you can stage whole, military protests, fights on TV. You could blame one side or the other, as doing something and pose as a certain, political organization, to put damning evidence towards an organization.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up because Dick Gregory, the famous comedian, claimed that forces from the CIA and the FBI used Jonestown bodies to smuggle heroin into the United States. Believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
Yes, and it says most of these explanations have been debunked. However, Matthew Thomas Farrell painstakingly assessed the mind control account offered by John Judge, who wrote what has become the text on conspiracy about Jonestown. The analysis of Dr. Leslie Mutu, believe it or not, Mutu, the Guyana pathologist who investigated the Jonestown deaths, revealed numerous discrepancies in his reports. And Jeff Braley, who served in the military as part of the humanitarian task force assigned to remove the bodies from Jonestown, thoroughly discredited Charles Huff, one of the bulwarks of the Scientology narrative. Yet in all of these investigations, one group of conspirators has been neglected: Jim Jones and the leadership circle in Jonestown. Ironically, this is the conspiracy for which most evidence exists. A plan had been devised, cyanide had been acquired, and dress rehearsals occurred, all with the complicity of a number of individuals. Unfortunately, that cohort included Carolyn Layton and Annie Moore, both of whom died in Jonestown, but quite a few others were part of the conspiracy as well. And the person that is writing this, they were Carolyn Layton and Annie Moore were their sisters. So this is coming from somebody who has inside knowledge. It says, but quite a few others were part of the conspiracy as well, including a team of young men from Jonestown who ambushed Congressman Ryan and his party as they attempted to leave. And it says, knowing the identities of the conspirators doesn't make their motivations transparent. What does seem evident is that a belief in the necessity of self-sacrifice, whether to prevent a greater disaster such as being tortured by outside forces or to protest the conditions of an inhumane world. This goes back to when you have people who are not afraid to die. I mean, it's like suicide bombers. Then what you have is you have the most dangerous person on the planet. I mean, the most dangerous person that you can imagine. And it's like the story of the man that went and talked to the leader of the assassins, which is a real secret society at the time, that the people that were part of that were the assassins, they would get high on hashish, and so their thinking would be altered, and their leader was referred to as the old man of the mountain. And so this person went and talked to him and asked him. He said, "How are you able to do the things you do? How are you able to control and defeat so many people?" And he said, "I'll show you." And he looked up on this sheer cliff that was very, very high, and there was these young men that were standing all over the place. But there was one man that was standing on this sheer cliff, and the old man of the mountain said, "Throw yourself down." And this guy jumped and just landed, boom, hit the rocks, killed himself.
Wow.
And he basically looked at the guy and he says, "Any more questions?" And the guy's like, "Wow." When you've got, when you have someone that takes and follows orders like that, then you have unlimited power, and it's basically whatever you want to do. And it wasn't just one young man that he had that would do that. They would all do that. And so it's very, very, it is the ultimate in mind control. Someone who does not hesitate to preserve their own life. And you think about the kamikaze,
and just like the suicide bombers, and they've done studies of the Muslims, and part of even the way that they need to pray, the constantly rocking back and forth and the repetitive action, it actually causes a person to become hypnotized. And they did studies on gang members, that were previously people that could never take a life. And the way that they found that the gang leaders were able to get people to actually kill somebody was with the very hardcore rap music.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually blast it and listen to it and get so hyped up, just like you're getting cranked up on speed, which, is another thing, is using narcotics and other things. But it's all about getting that person on that frequency and causing them to, repetitively do things. So they get into a hypnotic trance.
Yes, and that rocking back and forth. Really, it is anything that is repetitive that you just you do over and over and over, and it lulls you into a trance.
Crazy? Yes, and that's why. Do you remember Jesus said, "Do not pray"? There was something in the Bible that talked about that. Do not pray in repetition and as the Pharisees do, but it was actually
true. I never thought of that in that context, but it very well could have been, that's what he was talking about. Don't.
I knew it in the Catholic Church. I saw it, and when I was looking around as a kid, and when I started to wake up, well, I guess I was more of an adult, but I started listening to the Apostles' Creed, and I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, that he came down as Jesus, ascended into heaven and all this stuff. People start repeating, and they do it over and over again, and once you start repeating things that you do not believe, you actually rewire your brain, and that's actual science and what NLP program is based off of.
Wow, yeah, that is incredible. It's like the people say, or the priest takes the person's confession. He says, okay, say 10 Hail Marys, 20 Hail Marys, 30 Hail Marys, and it's like, okay, well, if you're just repeating, if you're just doing a repetitious prayer, it really has no meaning. It's just that. It's just repetition.
It has a lot of meaning. It has a lot of meaning to how it programs the brain, and I've actually studied that extensively, and especially when you start repeating something that you don't believe. But let me tell you, you can use that for good as well. And when it comes to people, that have gone through abuse and gone through things, when you use positive affirmations,
right,
and you use them all the time, they actually work.
Right, but it was what I meant by that is it would be much more helpful, much more beneficial to the person to just go and confess, just pour their heart out in their own words, in my opinion, rather than do a repetitious prayer where they were just going through the motions without any heartfelt meaning to it. So That's all I was
Well,
talking about.
there's different reasons. Yeah, that could be actually utilized as long, like I said, as long as you're not stating something that is going to have a negative effect. You can actually use that for very positive ways, and you can actually you can get yourself into an altered state that way.
Right. Well, it's just like the Hindu guys that bury themselves in the sand, like up to their neck, and it's like, how do they do that? Well,
Oh,
before
God,
that,
that would be.
oh, I know that would be like death for me. I mean, but it's like they are surrounded by sand. I mean, and it's like people are okay. Well, so what? Well, think about that. I mean, think about breathing or trying to get a good breath when you are completely encased in sand. It's my opinion would be that the person would suffocate, but they do it somehow, some way. And I believe that way is that beforehand, before you see them actually being buried in the sand, they have prepared themselves. They are in a trance. Their mind is controlled, and the mind controls the body, and so
Yeah. They
there you
use
go.
meditative practices. They use meditative practices to keep themselves calm. There's good and bad, but it's very important to identify how this programming is used for nefarious reasons.
Right.
And that's what the whole program is about.
And what you have is you have people like Jim Jones, Charles Manson, Marshall Applewhite of the Heaven's Gate cult, and David Koresh. And what you have to ask yourself is, or what we have to ask ourselves as far as those people, is it was not a secret that these men were dangerous. I mean, that these men were allegedly abusing their followers or children within the compound or the cult or whatever, as far as David Koresh. But David Koresh went into the city, went into the hardware store, and went into different stores and everything all the time, so they could have arrested him at any time. The question is why didn't they? Why did they swoop down and do that raid on that compound, knowing full well that he was armed to the gills? And if you ask me, I think it was all part of a plan, an experiment to see who would give themselves up, who would fight to the end,
And what characteristics could they identify in people that were more likely to, cave into the mind control versus the ones that, weren't susceptible to it?
Right.
Have you ever read David McGowan's Program to Kill?
I don't think so.
Oh, wow. It is. It goes into the specter of marauding serial killers. He goes into it that were all around California. He talks about he was actually killed, I believe.
I bet.
The specter, reaction, modern day, revulsions of morbid fascination. I wanted to find a clip, but oh my God! He's from Torrance, California. I didn't even realize he's from where I'm from.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Exactly. The Charles Manson, or not Charles Manson, the 666 killer.
666 killer. I'm not familiar with 666 killer.
Oh, you don't remember him with the 666?
Are you talking about Richard Ramirez?
Richard Ramirez.
The Night Stalker.
Yes. The Night Stalker.
Yes.
That was happening when I was there. I mean,
wow.
we had We had parents that were sitting up with shotguns.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Richard Ramirez was arrested for breaking and entering, and I believe that he like clubbed this man in the head, this husband in the head, and I'm talking, the guy walked. I mean, he was allowed to continue, and those of you that know who Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, is, you could just look at this guy, and I mean, you just seething evil is coming from this dude. I mean, he is not a nice guy.
Stories. If you get into his stories, if you read Dave McGowan's book, and
he's
maybe
creepy
we can,
as hell. I mean, he even gives me the creeps.
No. Yes, but you should see the connections between the people that were killed. I mean, like they seem to have no connection, but if you dug further. There were actually like political. It looked like he was actually hired, and that's what David McGowan was trying to point to.
I've got to read this book.
Just like Richard, just like Manson, and killing the pedophile's wife, Polanski's wife.
Right.
All that crazy stuff surrounding that. But he goes into even how. The Doors, their father was like in the CIA or high up in the military, right? And how all these people were related.
Jim Morrison's father was admiral in the Navy, so I mean we're talking very, very powerful. But one thing also is that and a lot of people, they don't know this, but when the authorities arrived at the house of Sharon Tate and what's his name, little short guy, the pedophile. What's her husband's name?
Roman Polanski.
Just lost. Okay. Thank you, Mona. Hey, Elaine. Okay, so we're having a problem with pause. Okay. All right. I'm going to do something here and see if we can't fix that. See if we can't take care of that. So just bear with me, please. We will definitely take care of that. Let's see how.
Hi, Elaine. I'm like researching, so I haven't been looking at the last time.
Okay. Let's see if that will help. I don't know why that might be taking place, but maybe what I just did helps. Okay. Let me know if that helps. I'm not sure. Say every few seconds there's a pause for a couple of seconds and then picks up where you left off. Okay. And I'm going to not only do that, but I'm going to turn off different things, so we will see where that leads us. Okay. Please let me know if that takes care of the problem. There's a function called a noise gate that picks up and that goes quiet and then picks up, and it's I turned that off, so that should take care of the problem. Thank you. One thing about that is that people say, well, in cases like this, it was random. Like people that were part of Jonestown, they just happened to join, and I promise you, it is not random. Okay, thank you, Mona. I'm going to going to. I don't know what to do, but we're going to. Let me turn this. Okay.
Let me see if I can cover up my phone as well, like you told me.
Okay, and Mona, let me know if that helps or if it still doing it. Anyway, so yes, most of the time it is not random. It is something that is very well orchestrated, something that is planned, and these people that were part of Jonestown, they were not. Okay, you say, but when it happens, we're not missing anything. It picks up where you left off. Okay, but still, I don't want listeners to have to go through that. I mean, that's very frustrating. So, okay, just please let me know if it's still doing it, and I'll see what I can do to take care of that. So, I've turned just about everything off. Okay, thank you. Great. I've turned just about everything off that I can. So,
yay!
But yeah. So when you have, thank you, when you have 900 people, it's those
unthinkable.
Yes, but they have all been checked out. I mean, they have all probably had tests. Or they had been monitored, because God forbid anyone be a member of Jonestown that would possibly speak up or speak out or speak to the other members about this being wrong, or that it was that there was abuse taking place, that this was abuse. And many of those people, they had a history of abuse. They had a history of drug use.
Of course.
They, and many of them, some of them were, they, for lack of a better term, they were gullible. They were, they were followers. They, there's only one. There's just
and
one
how
leader.
hard is it to find people like that?
Right. Exactly. And it says Skip Roberts, the Guyanese police commissioner responsible for investigating the deaths in Jonestown, observed, he says, quote, "Jones was clever. He had people kill their children first. Who would want to live after that?" And
Jesus.
that is the ultimate in, mind control. I mean, it's absolutely, it's insane. I mean, it is just insane. So,
and then they have all the discrepancies. Like they say, despite the growing allegations of misconduct against the People's Temple in the U.S., the move to Jonestown was given the full support of the American Embassy in Guyana. Some claim their cooperation was facilitated by Larry Layton's brother-in-law, as well as people including Walter Mondale, Rosalind Carter, and George Moscone. Others point out that Georgetown CIA station was in office space within the U.S. Embassy building itself, and at least 3 diplomatic officials were allegedly CIA assets.
Right, and that's what was said about Jonestown, was that it was in fact a CIA experiment in mind control, the ultimate. And I believe that someone that would kill their children first, no matter what they're told, that's just when you have that amount of power over someone's mind, you've certainly reached the pinnacle of mind control. It's
you made the ultimate slave. Yeah. You know, one thing about David McGowan, one of his quotes is, "If ignorance is truly bliss, then why do so many Americans need Prozac?"
Right. Okay.
But he died. The way he died was very interesting. He died of cancer on age 55, on the 52nd anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, 6 months after being diagnosed with an unusually aggressive form of lung cancer. Since 1990, McGowan ran a small business in Los Angeles. He was a Dodge veteran of the deep politics and deep events well before the term conspiracy theory became ubiquitous in the wake of 9/11 attacks. He has published a number of books on various aspects of the exercise of occult power. He has also published many books on controversial events, notably Apollo moon landing, MK Ultra, the Laurel Canyon, Mailu of the late 1960s, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the Pedocracy, Boston Marathon bombings, and many others.
Well, the Laurel Canyon killings, those included the many of the porn stars of the day, and I believe that was that involved that was the gosh, I can't think of the name of it, but those were brutal killings, murders that took place over drug deals, and that's a reoccurring theme too. Is the drug trade, from especially here in the South, Texas, California are two of the main, the big ones, and mainly because of Mexico and the drugs coming through, or the drugs from South America coming through Texas and California. But yeah, it's and then you have the Mexican gangs, or drug gangs or groups, and it's just could that also be part of the overall system? They say, well, we're against that, we're against those people that do that, but when you look at how much money is made doing that, could they be part of it? Could it all be connected? And I believe it is.
Course. Where there's money, there's connection.
Yeah, and that is huge money. And
it's the tangled weave that's webbed, or the web that's weaved.
Yes, absolutely. And but it says 40 years later, the deaths in Jonestown seem neither meaningful nor arbitrary. They are evil insofar as fundamentally decent human beings inflicted great horror and suffering on other human beings and on themselves. But what was included in the Jonestown tragedy is often overlooked. It wasn't just mind control by people following Jim Jones. I mean, there was a lot of drugs that were administered. There was a lot of drug use, including Jim Jones, and the guy may have had problems, or may have started out good, may have. I mean, I don't know, but he definitely went into a downward spiral by his own drug use, and he was what the powers that be saw in him, as well as Charles Manson. They saw people that were sexual deviants and could be trained or could be moved to do things like you've talked about, Sue Ellen, as far as the shocking. These guys, they would they would do what they were told, seemingly to be admired or to be patted on the back or whatever, even if it meant somebody dying. I mean, they didn't care, and so rather than that be detrimental to them, they were praised for it in these programs and things. So
Right. There's an article on onlinepsychologydegree.info, and it says 10 things to know about the psychology of cults. One is cults are attractive because they promise an illusion of comfort. Number 2, cults satisfy the human desire for absolute answers. 3, those who have low self-esteem are more likely to be persuaded by a cult environment. 4, new recruits are love bombs. And 5, women are more likely than men to join a cult. And many cult members have rejected religion. And cults maintain their power by promoting an us versus them mentality. And cult leaders are masters at mind control. They use public humiliation, self-incrimination, brainwashing, paranoia as their main techniques, and cult members often have no idea that they're in a cult.
absolutely, and when they do, it's too late. It's like it was said that it was reported that Jim Jones would punish members, or not even punish them, but would just randomly go to a they would be having like a cookout, and they're just having a good time, and Jim Jones just like snaps and tells a man, I am going to have sex with your wife in front of everyone because of something that she had said or something that he had said, and he would. And and of course, they're looking at this guy like he's God, which, in my opinion, God would not have that haircut. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I mean, that is just like the worst. And I know it's back in the 70s and everything, but still, it's atrocious. But yeah, so he would, tell these guys, yeah, I'm going to do this. And rather than them say, no, that's not right, whether it was out of fear for their life or their the life of their wife, they said okay, or maybe it was that they looked at him like he could do no wrong, and he did that and much more, but it was the insatiable lust that he had for the humiliation and the degradation of human beings that they had done nothing to him really. They may have questioned him, or they may have questioned.
Yeah, but it's all part of his tactic. Even with the guy having sex with his wife, it develops a love-hate relationship. But then within that love-hate relationship, there's an extreme dependency.
Right.
So he has to surrender, which keeps his self-esteem completely smashed into the ground, and he looks at that.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Yes.
That's it. And what that is I have said this over and over and over, is that it is simultaneously your tormentor and your comforter.
It's a classic in all abusive, even abusive relationships.
Yes, and
between a couple.
And why did he move all of those people from California to Guyana to isolate them from their surroundings, from their familiar surroundings, to isolate them so he could control them, so he could.
Where were they before? In California, were they all together?
They were in I believe it was Ukiah, California. Let me check on that and make sure. But
But were
that
they all together in a commune like they were in
I
Guyana?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that they were going to the People's Temple Church, but then Jim Jones had this idea or this dream of having a compound or having Jonestown, where it was going to be heaven on earth, and it turned out to be hell on earth. But the People's Temple was a church, and it was in San Francisco or near San Francisco, but I don't believe that it was a compound or that they were all living together in that setting in California. This was a new thing that he had dreamed, that was dreamed for him, rather. And
I was thinking maybe not. I mean that it was for a purpose. They were to carry out missions, or I was trying to think of why they would need them there, all the people there, versus or why they would take them out of California.
Well, it was. I think that it was. They were growing their own food and things like that. So I think it was more of an experiment. I
found it, and this is on history.com.
Okay.
Jones opened his first People's Temple Church in Indianapolis in the mid-1950s. His congregation was racially integrated, something unusual at the time for Midwestern churches. In the mid-60s, Jones moved his small congregation to Northern California, settling first in Redwood Valley and then in Mendocino County. In the 70s, the ambitious preacher relocated the organization headquarters to San Francisco and also opened a temple in Los Angeles. In San Francisco, Jones became a power figure. He curated favor with public officials and the media, donated money to numerous charitable causes, and delivered votes for various politicians at election time. People's Temple ran social and medical programs for the needy, including free dining hall, drug rehabilitation, legal aid services. Jones' message of social equality and racial justice attracted a diverse group of followers, including idealistic young people who wanted to do something meaningful with their lives. As Jones' congregation grew, estimates to the group size vary. In 1977, it said there was about 20,000. Negative reports began to surface about the man referred to as Father by his followers. Former members described being forced to give up their belongings, homes, and even custody of their children. They were told of being subjected to beatings and said Jones staged fake cancer healings. Faced with unflattering media attention and mounting investigations, the increasingly paranoid Jones, who often wore dark sunglasses and traveled with bodyguards, invited his congregation to move to him to Guyana, where he promised them he would build a social utopia.
Right.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
So it started out, sounds like any church, huh?
Right. So that's what people need to, listen to is there were many of those, people that they had questions. They knew, they felt it in their, they had the instinct that something wasn't right, that there was something wrong with this guy, but they went anyway. Maybe they were coerced.
Well,
maybe they were talked into it.
It explains to you why. I mean, these people truly believed that they were doing something good.
Right.
According to them, it's just like, people that are in the Catholic Church or people, that are in certain charismatic churches, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They have no idea. Everything looks great, and they have a sense of belonging. They have friendship they didn't have. They're not alone anymore, and, people get caught up.
Right.
And many things are kept hidden from them, so, But, yeah, definitely that most of those people probably sustained abuse that didn't allow them that made them susceptible. for that
Right.
kind of influence.
Right. It's just a very good thing to never put someone like Jim Jones or Charles Manson or whatever up on a pedestal as if they are some kind of god man, because I mean that's exactly what it was. I mean they viewed him
But how
as
do you
being
tell the difference? How do you tell the difference? That could be Elon Musk, in the science. It could be Michio Kaku. It could be, name anybody.
Well. I mean, I'm just saying that for me personally, I'm not going to follow a man. I may adhere to certain belief systems, but I'm not going to I'm not going to sacrifice my my value system for just because someone tells me to that may be a leader or something like that. It's just
Or a president.
yeah for any reason, political, spiritual. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
But you see, our obsession is constantly to be ruled, to have a king, to have a leader, to have followers. Our whole structure, just like the pyramid, through millennia has always been those on the top and those on the bottom that support and keep that person at the top. But it doesn't matter. It just seems like history just continually gets it keeps getting repeated.
Right.
I mean, it must be something that's so deeply ingrained in our society that you must have a leader and there must be a follower.
Well, it's a well-known fact that that there's cycles of time, history, whatever. That some people say that time repeats itself. History repeats itself, and I guess it does in a certain way. Very much.
For those
so.
that don't know history are fated to repeat it.
And that is the sign that was at Jonestown, believe it or not. That
Really?
yes.
Interesting.
And there's all those people that are laying there dead, and there's that sign. It says,
Wow.
those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And it's like, whoa, that just gives me chills. That is so creepy. But that sign is hanging there, and it is that just speaks volumes. I mean, you have all these 909 bodies plus Leo Ryan, and they're just as far as you can see, and there's this sign hanging there that those who don't learn from history or whatever are doomed to repeat it.
That is creepy. I have one possible motive. Imagine if those 909 people that they got had a lot of money.
Well,
that
I believe they did.
And in killing them, and they were able to take all that money away from his church and use it for black ops and other types of budgets.
Right. Definitely. And that's, I don't think that, okay, Mona, you say, I'm sorry to say this, it's happened just a few times, but you still keep pausing for a couple of seconds. Okay, thank you.
Break and
I'm just going to turn everything off and see. I have no idea what's causing that. Okay, I'm just going to. I'm just going to turn it all off. Okay, it is all, everything's off. So may not be the quality, but it's definitely it is, everything is off. So Hello, hello, hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now, Mona? Okay. All right. Hold on just a second. Can you hear me now? Okay. Hold on. We've got nothing that can't be taken care of. So, hold on. Here we go. I have to turn things back on, I guess. Okay. Can you hear me now, Mona? Okay, let me see. Okay, we got cut off. It says that we're still live. I don't think that Elaine is still on to tell me if it's your phone or what. So I turned everything back on. Anyway, I hope everyone can hear. Anyway, okay, Elaine says that she can hear me. Okay, thank you, Elaine. Anyway, anyway, sorry about that. Not sure what's going on, but it makes no sense sometimes. This is something that just has. It has plagued me so long, plagued us. But this is the sign at Jonestown says those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it, and it is definitely creepy that sign was hung there. I guess as a message. Oh, okay, thank you. I guess as a message to everyone to that's true. I mean, if you don't learn from history, you are doomed to repeat it, and that's very much the case with Jonestown, Jim Jones, and that debacle. Wow.
And it would be very interesting, I think, to really know for sure. You would have to do a complete background check and investigation on all 909 of those people.
Right, and that's what was very strange about it is there have been there has been no book or there's been many books that have been written about Jim Jones, but there's not that I know of. There has never been a book written on those who were members of his church or his group, which maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe that's part of the cover up. My personal opinion is that they were all moved from California to Guyana for that very reason, is because this was not the plan was not to create a utopia. The plan was to carry out experiments, and then if things went south, which they did, it would be they could just wrap everything up and by mass suicide, and they had their fall guy, Jim Jones. They just blame it on him and say well he forced everyone, he coerced everyone to commit suicide, when that's clearly not the case now. That's coming out is that many of those people were murdered. They were shot, and so But
And you could almost see why Scientology, why they could speak out, because if you really think about it, when we were describing that in the beginning, it really describes almost Scientology to a T.
right, absolutely,
minus the whole alien entity, roller thing that we know of.
right,
But,
and that's a whole nother show. I mean, that's a few shows as far as Scientology goes, and Scientology, there again was, started by L. Ron Hubbard, who was very, very high in intelligence and the U.S. Navy. I mean, this guy was very, very powerful, and he worked with.
He was a fantasy writer.
Yes, and he worked with Jack Parsons, of who basically started NASA. And Jack Parsons was the spiritual son, or the spiritual inheritor of none other than Aleister Crowley. And so when you put those three together, Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and Aleister Crowley, I mean, you're talking about some very, very deep mind control, occult, I mean, we're talking deep, deep things. You had Charles Manson had his, the Manson family out in the Mojave Desert in 1947. And that 1947 seems to be a very pivotal year, a very important year. There's a lot of things that happened during 1947 that, took place. And that included Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. They spent, I think it was like 2 weeks in the Mojave Desert doing these rituals that they said that they were punching holes through the fabric of space-time to allow the in this work called the Babylon working. They wanted to allow this goddess that they were talking about, Babylon, to enter this dimension. And so they were doing sexual rituals in the Mojave Desert, Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. And I'm not sure if the Scientology people realized that their leader was out in the Mojave Desert having sex with Jack Parsons, and they were living it up, supposedly punching holes in dimensions. And I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. No, just not going to comment on that. But you get my gist. I mean, they were doing some pretty, they were having some pretty intense ritualistic sexual activities